what the city is talking about. This is Montreal Now on News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
I want to challenge Mark Carney to show up for the debate at TVA in Quebec. He's running away and hiding because he believes that he's too weak to defend the lost Liberal decade or explain why he thinks Liberals deserve a fourth term.
Yeah, okay. Pierre Poilievre, the Conservative leader, trying to, chide Mark Carney enough to the point where he'll show up at the debate, which now is not going to happen at all. TVA canceled that debate. So let me go to Jim Mennie. Jim, we talked about this yesterday.
Yeah.
And you said, you know what, no big deal. Okay, it's over. And it seems like today everyone was like, no, this is a terrible thing to do. Is this over? This going to keep dogging him or what?
Okay, no, it's not. And I'll tell you, first of all, one of the things that hasn't come up from the Liberal camp, it certainly has come up online, and it's a verifiable fact. If Mark Carney can be accused, or the Liberals can be accused of not wanting to pay $75,000 to billionaire Pierre-Carl Pelado to underwrite the cost of a debate, which up until now has been free, gratis, and for nothing for decades, okay? Well, lest we forget, Pierre Poilievre paid $50,000 not to have to go into a debate up against Jean Charest when he was seeking the leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada. So you know what? Maybe everybody should just, take a deep breath. With all due respect to the chattering classes in Quebec, most pundits are on PKP's payroll, so of course there's going to be outrage. But the idea, and I'm seeing it, Carney doesn't want to talk to Quebec. He doesn't understand Quebec. I got news for you. Why don't you and I make a little date? Next week, we'll sit down, look at that week's polling, and see how he's doing in Quebec, and see if this, how can I put it, self-described Quebec tradition, this rite of passage, actually matters a damn in 2025. Because I have to tell you, Aaron, more and more, and as someone who's covered these things and assigned people to cover these things for the past 40 years, I am becoming increasingly skeptical about the effect that people, these debates have. Oh, it's the only chance that your average Joe lunch bucket will ever have to, hear what the leaders have to say. There's a little something called the interweb, and people are on it all the time. And guess what? Even Joe Lunchbucket knows how to use it. So this idea that putting people, I'm not going to bat for the Liberals here, and I said yesterday, it's pragmatic for him. The idea that we're not even talking about how a privately owned and operated and controlled media empire by a Quebec billionaire who used to be head of the Parti Québécois turns around and pleads poor and tries to shake down, four parties for a leadership debate. I think we're really kind of missing the point here. But all that said, Aaron, in the end, this is going to blow over. And I'm sure that right now, having heard the news, and having heard your conversation with Carlton Trail before, I think Mr. Poilievre is going to have other issues to talk about besides the French debate, one less French debate.
Yeah, things don't last long, do they? This is a big story yesterday. Suddenly it's another day. They're back on the trail, and today it's security clearance and money for the military. So I guess this thing has gone away, except, of course, if you happen to be a reader of the Journal de Montréal, because Carney's decision was a slap in the face to Quebec, according to François Blanchet.
Well, you know what? If you're, that said, with all due respect to, and I have some friends, I still have a few who work over at the Journal. The number of people who read the Journal de Montréal is shrinking exponentially, which is one of the reasons why I think that, PKP tries to do a shakedown of these federal parties. It'll be interesting, Aaron, to tell you the truth, if around, I guess, this time, maybe next fall, 26, if Mr. Pelado is going to be charging the Parti Québécois and Quebec Solidaire and the Liberals to participate in a face-à-face, or whether he's going to show the job over to Radio-Canada. But the thing that gets me here, and to me, and I'm sorry if I sound like a broken record, but it seems that this particular campaign is throwing so many curves at us, throwing so many sea changes in things that we thought were fundamentally a part of Canadian politics. The polls that are coming out, there was Angus Reid yesterday, Léger this morning. At one point in time, 2015, the first federal campaign you and I covered together, the NDP was the official opposition. Now it looks like they might get wiped off the map.
Yeah.
There was a time before we were working together, let me put it that way, but our listeners, I'm sure, can remember it. There was a time the Bloc Québécois, believe it or not, was the official opposition in Ottawa. Now both these parties, and this is not overstating the case, both these parties are running the risk in this campaign, this incredible Donald Trump referendum, of being wiped off the map politically. And this is something that is just unfolding before our very eyes. It's not getting as much, perhaps, attention as it should, maybe down the road, because we're looking at so many things in this tight 37-day campaign. But I'm telling you, my friend, we seem to be slowly but surely reverting to what we have always been for all those decades before, which is a two-party state, which is conservatives and liberals. Let's face it, the NDP, and relatively speaking, the NDP and the Bloc are relatively, recent innovations. But it looks as though they have run their course, so to speak. Certainly the separatist angst and anger that created the Bloc is dissipating very, very quickly. And it's kind of funny to think as well, as I speak to you, I'm presuming, as I talk to you, as I'm sure you're aware, I'm checking my screen to see if Éric Girard has stood up and started to talk and whether the lockup is over. But the other thing is, no matter what that deficit is going to be, we know for a fact that the cause of Quebec separatism always takes a dive, a bigger dive, when the economy is uncertain. Fat times, everybody wants to leave Canada. But when things are tough, all of a sudden, everyone's waving the maple leaf. But we have that added twist that comes from the whole Trump element in this campaign. So it's going to be very interesting once this budget is tabled, and God knows where they're going to get the money from. If they're not going to raise taxes, Aaron, if they're not going to raise sales taxes, personal taxes, that means they're going to start, doing the old Peter versus Paul thing. What programs are going to get cut in order to finance these new programs, or the supporting businesses and so on and so forth? I'm guessing none of the identity programs will get cut. I'm pretty sure tomorrow morning the OQLF will have the same number of inspectors, but it's going to be very interesting to see what kind of a shell game that Éric Girard is going to play to try and move that money around. But in the meantime, it's going to be virtually impossible for people like Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon of the Parti Québécois, or indeed Yves-François Blanchet of the Bloc, and even though Blanchet has said, I'm not talking about separation, and no kidding, it's going to be very difficult to see how either of them can raise what is essentially the fundamental reason they exist politically, given that right now times are tough and nobody's got any money.
I'm just seeing now some of the details coming out, and we'll get to this in just a minute on the budget, including one headline that says it's the end of the honeymoon for people who own electric cars. They're now going to have to pay an annual contribution of $125, but get this, that's starting in 2027, to help finance the road network. It also means the end of free travel on toll bridges and ferries starting in April of 2027 as well.
I'll tell you one thing though. Okay, I don't know if we keep score that way, but I will give you full credit. This is like a couple of years ago. You were expressing skepticism over the entire rapturous love affair that all levels of politics were engaging in with electric vehicles, and now I think this is it. It's over. You know what?
No free rides.
He doesn't like you that way anymore. You're not going steady with electric cars anymore, and I think we need some very fundamental changes on that. But once again, it's going to be fascinating to see how Éric Girard squares that circle, because I have a sneaking suspicion that until Donald Trump is stopped one way or another, we're just going to, on top of everything else, Aaron, it's the absolute and utter uncertainty that's surrounding every single day of the economic life of Canada and the U.S. and to a certain extent the rest of the world.
I will point out, by the way, it's still, a week away, April 2nd, which Donald Trump now refers to as Liberation Day, Jim, when we find out the full extent of the tariffs and just how bad things are going to get, if they're going to get worse, or if he pulls back and maybe they're not going to get as bad as we thought. Either way, they're going to be bad. The question is just, by measure of degree, how bad will they be?
I think he's going to blink. I think between now and then, either you or I will be inadvertently included on a group chat in terms of tariff strategy, and we'll be able to get the scoop. And I think he's going to blink. I think he never had this. This was never an issue. He thought a lot of people were going to just keel over. And my hat's off, first of all, to all politicians involved in this campaign for pushing back to varying degrees, but all of them speaking with one voice. That's the thing that scares a bullet, is when you get pushed back. And it's clear that this is happening with Canada. Mexico has been very, very discreet, but Europe isn't screwing around. And I think finally the message, if not getting through to Trump, is certainly getting through to the people around him. People like Lutnick who talk a tough game publicly, and yet every single time, Aaron, you and I have been talking, this date is going to be the deadline. All of a sudden it changes, it gets delayed, or maybe it's not going to be quite what we said it's going to be. I mean, talk to me April 2nd, but I'm not losing any sleep over that.
By the way, Jim, are you not already in the group chat? I am.
Well, listen, I guess I should be trying harder, but I'm so busy with my second job at the Gazette. Maybe the emails there. I'll have to go and check.
Yeah, Howard Lutnick fills me in on everything inadvertently.
There
all right, James Mennie at the Montreal Gazette. Thank you, Jim.